I'm trying to start a business, a brand, everything. And it's more than that. It's actually like a whole entire movement behind it. And the reason that it's called Strength from the Madness is just literally the name of it. That's why. It's about finding your own strength from your own madness that you're dealing with in life. I've actually gone through it myself. I will get into a lot more detail about everything that I've been through, but anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, all of that have been major issues for over a decade now in my life. And I just know that when I went through the worst of my journey, I know that there was a huge void in the mental health space, because there's just nobody talks about it to the extent that they need to. I realize that the attempt is being made to spread awareness more, but what takes that awareness to even happen in the first place is when something incredibly unfortunate happens. And that's when people start to take it more seriously. But then after a few days, it just kind of fades away again and nobody's even thinking about it or talking about it again. And that's not okay, because there are still people who are suffering in silence. And I was one of them, because I did not feel ready to go and talk to someone about what I was going through and what I was feeling and the thoughts that I was getting every day. And for a long time, I thought those thoughts were completely normal. Like, I thought everyone had those thoughts, until I was told no. Like, I've had people say to me, I've never thought that. I've never considered taking my own life. And that's when the reality check really hit me. Like, people don't actually think about this every day. You're not even supposed to think about it at all. And that's what made me realize, okay, I do have a problem. And I don't need to be feeling this way. I don't need to live like this every single day, feeling like I just want it all to be over. I just want it all to stop. And that's what made me finally realize, okay, something does need done. I just know that when I was going through the worst of it, for me, for myself, there was this whole entire void that just no one ever talked about it. I actually would seriously Google whatever I was going through. I would search it and hope that somebody else had posted about it. Even if it wasn't exactly what I was going through, even something close to it, similar, and maybe they even might say how they got through it, how they coped, how they dealt with it, how they overcame whatever it was that they were going through. And I could never find anything even close to what I was going through. If I ever found anyone on YouTube or anything like that to talk about it, it was never anything even close to what I was going through. I've found people talk about their anxiety, their depression, their struggle, and each time I feel like, okay, I think I can finally relate to someone who's online, who's getting their voice out there, letting it be known, they're showing their vulnerability, Anytime I would feel like I could finally relate to someone, they always had one step further with their struggle that I couldn't relate to. For example, alcoholism or parenting, or just any kind of extra layer of a struggle they were going through, and that actually overpowered their anxiety and depression. What they would talk about mostly would be more so their struggle with whatever that added on layer would be, not just specifically their anxiety and depression. So that never worked for me, because I couldn't relate. And I feel like it's important, especially if you're not ready to talk to someone, I feel like it's so important to be able to feel like you can actually relate to someone. Even if you don't know them, just to know that someone else has gone through it. And that's kind of what's interesting about this, because I've gone through so many things. It is actually insane how many crazy different things I've been through. So I'm hoping that with each thing that I talk to and go into detail about, especially if we haven't met, that I can't make this up to relate to you. You might just be like, wow, that's crazy. Like, I go through that too. I didn't think anyone else would ever understand. And that's what I needed, and that's what I was missing when I was going through it really bad. I have tried therapy, so many different kinds of therapies. I've tried therapists. I've had multiple mobile therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists. I've tried a hypnotherapist. I've tried so many different types of therapies, coping mechanisms, breathing techniques, just about everything that there is. And nothing ever really worked. It was helpful, don't get me wrong, but for me personally, nothing ever really seemed to work enough to where I felt like I was actually getting the assistance I needed to get through and cope every day. I've also tried medications, a few different kinds of medications. I mean, I've tried just about everything that was ever suggested to me by a professional, and even those who weren't professionals, but I will definitely get into more detail about how I felt people have pushed me towards, whether it was meds, religions, therapy. I mean, the list goes on for what people will push you to do. And I think one of the biggest problems is the misunderstanding that people have, because there's a tendency for people to think that there is a one-size-fits-all solution for those who are dealing with anxiety and depression, and that is not true at all. It couldn't be farther from the truth. I can only talk about my own personal experience with it, and I am no way, shape, or form a professional at all. I took one Psychology 101 class for college, and it wasn't for me. And again, this is only based off of my own personal experience. I just felt like for therapy, it felt like a hypocrite was sitting across from me just listening to me, getting paid to hear me talk. That's how I felt. And I am in no way discouraging it. I think everyone should at least try to see a therapist at one point in their life, at least try. I'm not discouraging it. Like, I really do encourage you to try it. I can only talk about, like I said, my own experience. And that's how it felt to me. So by me taking Psychology 101 and going on to do something in the mental health professional field, it just didn't feel right to me, because when I was going through it, it felt like everyone was a hypocrite around me and no one understood. And I actually found myself educating my therapist. I would have to do research to prove things, and like nobody would listen to me, and I had to actually find the facts and write down the source and everything, and give it to my therapist, and they'll be like, wow, I never knew that. Yeah, because you never actually cared enough to look into it, you know? So I mean, the mind is fascinating, don't get me wrong. So to want to study that in college, I can understand, but you know, so that wasn't for me. So again, I'm in no way, shape, or form a professional at all. I have no degree. I have no certification. I have nothing like that. But what I do have to offer is over a decade's worth of experience. Vulnerability has to start somewhere. And I hope that it can start here. I hope that I can encourage others to open up about their stories as well. Strength from the Madness is just a whole new way of seeing mental health, mental illness, anxiety, depression, even past that, just as being a human being. Like, so many people are so quick to judge, and they are so clueless about what it's like to go through it. I would not wish anxiety, depression, anything like that on my worst enemy. And a lot of people don't understand the extent of how bad it is until they actually experience it themselves. Especially if they've never had a panic attack before, and then they have one, and it's like, wow. And then they have their reality check of how bad it really is. So I hope that my vulnerability inspires other people to open up about it as well. I also have a Strength from the Madness shop. I'm still working on that. I'm still designing and things and ordering and seeing what it looks like in person, trying through different vendors and all that. I really do hope that it helps get the conversation started. That's the whole goal of the shop. I hope to have some eye-catching designs so that it makes people talk about it even more. And there's also a reflection collection. That's actually, I'm gonna have to show you in another video, but that's actually the writing on clothing or hats backwards, so that when other people see you, if you have a typical shirt on and it has a word here, and other people are looking at you, they can read it, but when you look in the mirror, you can't read it, it's backwards to you. I am doing the opposite of that. So it's going to be backwards to other people, but straight to you in the mirror. You'll be able to read it in the mirror. It's caring more about what you think, what you see in the mirror, what you know that you're wearing, who you know you are, all of that, as opposed to caring so much about what everyone else thinks and what everyone else sees and who they think you are, all of that. Also, a lot of people are going to ask you what it says, and you can tell them. You can be open and tell them what it says, because that also helps get the conversation started too. It's not just about if it's the regular, because I'm going to have both. I'm going to have some with the regular writing and then some backwards, but I do hope that it helps get the conversation started. I hope that it helps people feel more comfortable to start to open up and talk about it even more than they already are. And this just needs to become a normalized subject in everyday conversations. A lot of times for mental illness awareness clothing, sometimes it is just so plain and to the point. And the thing is, like, for me at least, everything is so complex. Like, nothing is simple. I overthink everything. So that's another reason why I am a little bit obsessed, I guess, with the name Strength from the Madness, because it has so much meaning behind it. Plus, it's a way for you to wear your struggle proudly and feel empowered as opposed to embarrassed. And I just think that is so powerful that you'll be able to wear it and show it off. And that's going to actually help get the conversation going even more and normalize the subject. This is not about promoting myself. This is not about promoting some new thing. It is about promoting literally Strength from the Madness.